I'm your host, Jay Gay, and today on the podcast I have with me Nick Winkler. He's back on with us. We had him on a couple episodes back. He's with the Locked On 49ers podcast. Before we get started, please make sure you guys, again, like, comment, subscribe, check us out here on YouTube. We're also on Spotify and wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Nick, I appreciate you coming on with us again today, man.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jay.
Yeah, so, Nick, it's been a crazy, and I mean a crazy NFL offseason, man. It's the last time we spoke, it was in the middle of the playoffs, and since then, it's it's been a whirlwind, to say the least, man. All these players moving around, Devontae Adams going to the Raiders, and it's like, it's just crazy, man. So let me get some of your takes on that, man. What do you think about, as you look back on free agency so far?
Yeah, the wide receiver market's really crazy. You talk about, what happened with him going over to the Raiders, and then you have, Deebo Samuel, or, today asking for a trade. You have Tyreek Hill already getting traded. You got a guy like Christian Kirk, who's, probably a middle to lower end of the wide receiving scale, getting $70 million in the offseason, so that's crazy. He basically broke the wide receiver market. And the Deebo Samuel stuff really, it didn't come out of nowhere because, last week he scrubbed his social media of all 49ers stuff and really just said, hey, I'm doing what people do now, right? They scrub everything. They make it look like, look, I need a deal if you want me to be a part of your organization. He's got 1 year left on his rookie deal. And then realistically, the 49ers could probably tag him for 2 more years after that. So he doesn't have a ton of leverage right now when it comes to trying to get a contract. And apparently he's saying that money isn't a big problem, when it comes to that sort of thing. But it always comes down to money, right? You look at what Christian Kirk got, $70 million. Deebo Samuel's like, well, I'm twice the wide receiver he is, so I'm going to need at least 140. So it's been wild, man. We haven't even touched on anything else in the NFL, just the wide receivers. And, we're a week away from the draft here. So who knows what's going to – there's even more stuff that's probably going to happen here in the next week that's going to be crazy.
Yeah, man, it's it's crazy. And before we get to that, man, you mentioned Deebo Samuel. He finished the year off with 2021. He finished off with 550 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. Then he had 1,405 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. So obviously, he is a gadget guy, right? And he's very important to the 49ers offense and the team in general. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. And he wants to leave San Francisco, so it's something to keep an eye out for. Like I say, it broke today that 3 teams tried to call. The Falcons, I believe, was one of them. We're not getting him. We have our own problems to worry about.
Right.
The Jets, I think, was another team. So we'll just keep an eye on that. But the 49ers have, from what I've heard, they maintain that they are not going to trade him. So we'll see where this goes. But
the question when it comes to trading a guy like Deebo Samuel is, can you make your team better by trading him? And the answer is probably no. You've got one of the most electric football players in the NFL. You mentioned his yards as a running back and as a wide receiver. He basically invented the wide back position that he plays, and there's nobody else like it in the NFL. There just isn't. And so if you're going to trade him, you better get a huge haul. And me personally, I think you need to get draft picks and you need to get a starter. You need to get somebody back that's going to help your team immediately, because draft picks are a crapshoot. And you know what you have in Deebo Samuel, this guy that can change football games. You saw what he did in the playoffs, what he did all season long.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He got 1,400 yards as a receiver. And the last almost half of the season, he played running back most of the time. So it's really crazy what that guy did. Maybe he's just doing that I'm requesting a trade thing because, he's thinking the 49ers are lowballing him. It could just be a big ploy. I'd be shocked if the 49ers traded him because of the leverage they have when it comes to his contract. It just wouldn't make any sense financially, and it just wouldn't make your team any better.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And, it's crazy. Like you said, Christian Kirk, he got all that money from Jacksonville. He kind of so you got all these receivers now are like trying to, like AJ Brown with the Tennessee Titans. He's wanting an extension now. So he's setting a market right now for the receivers, and they're really okay. Hey, if Christian Kirk's getting this money, what about us? AJ Brown. He's really good player.
Terry McLaurin, DK
Terry
Metcalf, two other
McLaurin,
guys
yeah,
that were in that same draft that are also going to be looking for big deals. And they don't want to be the first one to sign because that first guy is probably going to make the least of those four, because he's going to set it as like, well, this is the bare minimum now. I'm better than this guy, so
yeah.
I'm going to need more. And what's funny is McLaurin, AJ Brown, and Deebo Samuel, they all have the same agent too. So that's going to make things a little bit tricky.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye out for. So, Nick, moving on, man, like I said, a lot of moving parts going on this offseason, most notably the quarterback movement as well. Deshaun Watson going to the Browns, that was a whole saga right there.
Yes.
It was that the Falcons were a part of, but he didn't end up coming here, sadly. You know,
Good thing.
well, yeah, maybe.
It's tough. It's one of those double-edged swords.
Yeah, and Atlanta will end up shipping off Matt Ryan to Indianapolis to the Colts. So I guess good thing for him is he won't be on his back every play.
Right.
The horrible offensive line we have here. So yeah, man. So what I mean, as far as the quarterback movement, man, what is your thoughts on that and how this might affect these, the NFL going forward, man, into next season and the seasons and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of reminds you that nobody is untouchable, right? I mean, Russell Wilson, who's like the face of the Seahawks over the last decade, is now a Denver Bronco. So it's just anything can happen, right? I mean, it's just who knows who's going to be the next guy to go. You have the Washington Commanders going out after Carson Wentz and like giving way too much to get a guy who can't stay healthy and has had like 3/4 of one good season, and that's about it in his career. But it reminds you the potential factor, right? I mean, when teams are looking at building around one quarterback, they don't always necessarily look at winning percentage because why wouldn't Jimmy Garoppolo be at the top of everybody's list? It's because they see this talent, this arm, this prototype. They look on paper like, oh, Carson Wentz should be really good. Let's go get him.
Right.
It's like, well, he hasn't shown it over a full year ever. The 1 year he had a good season, he got hurt, and then his team won the Super Bowl without him. So it's like, was he really that good, or was he just kind of, happened to be, steering the ship at the time that this, that this thing was going for a championship? So the Matt Ryan thing is going to be really interesting to see how that pans out in Indianapolis because they're a good football team, but now they just added a really good quarterback.
Yeah, man. And like I say, when I saw that they traded him, man, I'm like, okay. So it's obvious that the team is heading into a rebuild mode. Of course, they're not going to go out and say that. Arthur Smith is going to come out and say that. Terry Fontenot's not going to come out and say that, obviously. But it's clear that they are in rebuilding mode. I mean, heck, they even were part, like I mentioned earlier, they were a part of the whole Deshaun Watson saga, right? Among other teams like the Saints and the Panthers and the Dolphins, I believe, was one team. But the Browns ended up getting him and paying him all that money. So $230 million guaranteed, man, for anybody that's wondering. So Deshaun Watson will be making that money next season, whether he plays or not.
To get back to the Falcons, they're in a tough spot too because they want to start this rebuild process, right? But they've got so much dead money on the cap, right? I mean, on the books, it's like they're still paying Julio Jones a bunch of money, and he's long gone. So it's like it's going to take a little while for the Falcons fans. Hopefully they draft right. Hopefully they get a couple of young guys that will be starters for 5 years before their rookie deals, and they have to actually start paying those guys too because they're not going to have a whole lot of money. I'm sure that they wanted Deshaun Watson, but I can't imagine that what they're guaranteeing him was anywhere near what the Browns were able to do because they just don't have it.
Yeah, they nowhere near it, and because when I first saw it, they were trying to get him. I was like, oh, that's not real. When then like all these sources kept reporting it, I'm like, okay, they're in the mix for him, and they clearly were trying to get after him. And then, obviously with Matt Ryan still on the books, it's like, okay, it's kind of awkward, So they traded him to Indianapolis. Like you said, they have a great squad up there in Indy and great coach Frank Reich, and the offensive line is awesome, man. Jonathan Taylor, he's a stud running back. And so who knows what happens up there. I believe they will be contenders, though, in the AFC for sure. But yeah, man, it's been a crazy offseason. Now, as we look towards the draft, a lot of teams have different needs. And like we mentioned before, this draft is not quarterback heavy, man. It's not, which is really the one of the most important positions on what you want to start a team with. That's what you want to build your team around, your quarterback. So, man, what are your thoughts on the draft class this year and how that might shape out?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens in the draft, right? I think we might see a lot of trades because there's a lot of guys out there that, one team probably views a lot higher up than another team does, and their guy might start to fall, whereas somebody's sitting there like, I don't like any of these guys, as they're going down the list, they're scrolling like, oh man, we're sitting here at 13, 14, like, and then somebody calls. They're like, oh yeah, no, we'll trade. Let's go. Let's move around because, like you said, there's nothing real flashy in this draft. There's not like 4 or 5 big name guys that might go early. Yeah, there's probably a top 10 that's solid. There could be some really good NFL. Obviously, there's going to be some superstars that
oh yeah, of course, no doubt about it.
Yeah, that are found later in the draft that might not look like it right now because they're college kids, and they're coming out. And eventually, if they get in the right spot, too, that's so important when it comes to the draft, too. Is like, what's your opportunity? Where are you at? Who's teaching you at that next level? So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the draft. I don't think the 49ers, I'm a Niner guy, so I don't think they're going to move up. They don't even have a first-round draft pick. His name's Trey Lance, and they'll be using him next year, too, in their first round. But that's what's so great about what they did last year is if Trey Lance was in this draft, he would easily be the overall #1 pick. Like there wouldn't even be a close second. There's right now there's a lot of talk about like who is going to be #1. Is it who knows what's going to happen, right? So if you're sitting atop that draft board, you're like, oh, we got the #1 pick, or even a top 3. Like, well, but who are we going to take?
Who are you going to take? Because I mean, really, man. Like, I cannot sit here and tell you, like, who's going to go where. I don't know. Could it be, Kevon Thibodeau from Oregon was slated to go #1, a few months ago in the draft, but his draft stock is kind of dipping right now,
Which is wild. I bet he still goes #1 though. I have a feeling.
And of course, Aiden Hutchinson up there as well. Can't forget about him. He's a stud too, man. But as far as the quarterbacks are concerned, like I said, it's not a real heavy quarterback class. It's more receivers, defense oriented type of class. But it's because you got Malik Willis, obviously from Liberty. You got Kenny Pickett from Pitt, and you got let's see who else we got in this class, man. Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati. So those are your top 3 guys that have been mentioned, over the last year or so. And who knows where each one of those guys is going to go.
And with those guys too, they're probably not start day 1 guys. They're probably guys that you bring in and develop a little bit. Hopefully they can sit their whole rookie season and learn. Because the speed of the NFL is a lot different. These guys are great talents, no doubt about it. I mean, they're top tier college athletes. I'm not trying to disrespect these guys at all, but at the same time, it's like they maybe aren't blue chip guys right away, and that's okay. If as long as you're not overpaying for them, as long as somebody doesn't think like I need Willis, I'm going to trade up to the 3rd pick and give up a couple of future firsts. Like,
right?
Maybe not the best idea.
Yeah, probably not. Like I said, this class is very talented. I will say that Malik Willis is a very talented quarterback. All of these guys are talented. Obviously, they wouldn't if they weren't. We wouldn't be talking about them right now. It'll just be interesting to see. Like you said, it's not really day 1 guys. And like last year, of course, you had Mac Jones and Fields and Trey Lance, right? All those guys, of course. It's just. It's really interesting, man, to see what's going to happen with this draft. I'm really waiting to see who, where, So what, as far as the word in San Francisco is, where do you think the team is possibly trending towards with that pick, with their first pick in the draft?
I wouldn't be surprised if they did move up, just because that's kind of John Lynch's demo, right? I mean, you look back at his past drafts, and he never sits still.
Yeah.
He trades down, he trades up, he moves all over the place, and I can't imagine that he's the kind of guy that's just going to kind of sit on his hands, until the second round, the end of the second round, too. That's a long time for him to sit around and not make a move. That's not John Lynch's style. So I think that, if this Deebo Samuel stuff is still kind of out there, still unresolved, I wouldn't be surprised if they did like a move up and went after a wide receiver. Or they really have some pressing needs right now on the offensive line. Alex Mack, their Pro Bowl center, he might, all about Alex
Yes,
Mack.
the former Falcon.
Yeah, exactly. So he might retire before the season even starts. So they might need to address that. They lost Laken Tomlinson in free agency. There's still a big question mark at right tackle with Michael Glitchy, who's coming off of a season-ending injury a year ago. So they have a lot of needs there on the offensive line, not to mention their cornerback depth.
What are you guys going to do at the quarterback
position? Got a lot of needs.
I mean, as far as I know right now, Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the roster, correct?
Yeah, and still getting paid $25 million this year.
So Kyle Shanahan has not really. They've asked him what way they're trending towards, whether they're going to start with Lance or he's not really. He's not giving anything. So I don't know what's going to happen in San Francisco. Who's going to start at quarterback? If they're going to deal with Garoppolo before the season, we don't know. What do you think, man?
I know they want to trade Garoppolo. I know that it's something that they've wanted to do. It's just that shoulder surgery that he had really messed everything up. Really kind of put it like tap. People were checking in. They were like, okay, this Garoppolo guy, maybe we'll give something for him. And then boom, shoulder surgery. It's like, oh. Hold on a second. Let's not do that right now because who knows? Arms don't always bounce back. Shoulders don't always come back to where they were. So that really, really tied the hands of the 49ers because they're not just going to cut him. If they do, that'd be great, for the 49ers because then they could go spend that money elsewhere. But at the same time, they don't get anything for him, So you don't want to just give a guy up who has led a team to 2 NFC championship games, who's done basically nothing but win his entire career.
Yeah.
And he doesn't put up huge numbers. Yeah, he's not a sexy pick, the ladies like him, obviously. He's an attractive male. But that doesn't mean that he's a great football player. He's good. He's really good. He's a good leader. Guys love following him. And there's actually people out there right now that think this Deebo Samuel thing might have a little something to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. That he's actually a Jimmy Garoppolo guy. And he's actually upset that is still a thing. So who knows what's going to happen with that? Me personally, if I had to pick right now, I'd probably say that Trey Lance is the starter day one and Jimmy Garoppolo's not on the roster.
Yeah, man, and and with San Francisco, I believe that their time window is running a little bit thin. Like I said, they've been to the NFC Championship the last couple of years, man. But it's and I know we've had the Bucks and the Packers the last couple of years as these and the Rams as these juggernauts in the NFC. But at some point, San Francisco's got to find a way to get past this hump, right? And so it's a matter of time, right? And so I believe going forward right now, this draft is extremely important towards that. And with the whole Deebo Samuel situation, how that plays out, it's just a lot to look for, man. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. A lot of these teams, man, this might be the craziest offseason we've ever had in the NFL, Nick. I'm going to be honest with you. I've never seen nothing like it.
Yeah, just with the trades alone, big name guys don't normally get traded in the NFL. Like I know it's kind of been trending that way the last few years. You saw Matt Stafford, like stuff like that. Like it's happened. But then this offseason, it was just like one name after the next, after the next, after the next. The biggest one to me that shocked me the most was the Tyreek Hill thing because, I get it. They got a haul for him. That was great. But, Tyreek Hill is probably, the most electric player in the NFL.
No doubt.
He's a guy that that 2 plays and, he can score 2 touchdowns. And then you're all of a sudden, that's 2 80-yard bombs. And now, you're putting a football game away. So that was really, really shocking to me, especially with how good the Chiefs have been, since Mahomes took over because he's had that number one weapon in Hill. So it is that definitely shocked me. The Russell Wilson thing obviously shocked me. There comes a point, right, where we stop being shocked. We're just like, okay,
it's just
is
like
this the NFL now?
Yeah.
Like, is this how it's going to be every offseason? I hope so. This is exciting.
It's almost like NBA off seasons, man.
Yeah. They always have the best. The NBA always have the most exciting because it's like big names going everywhere for huge amounts of money. It's fun to watch.
Yep. Well, Nick, I appreciate you coming on with the podcast today, man. It was really good having you on and talking some football with us, man, as we get closer to the draft and the next season, of course. Draft is 1 week from now, so keep an eye on that for these prospects and everything. But you guys check us out on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, comment, like, and Nick, I appreciate you coming on with us, man.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jay.
All right.